Welcome to this week's Magic Wand Moment. I'm Lindsay Wallstrom, the Chief Momatologist here at Rona's Fun Lab. Today I'm joined by Aaron Horowitz, founder and CEO of Empath Labs, an organization that designs and implements programs to improve pediatric engagement in clinical trials. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Aaron, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
I am a big fan of your work and have been for a while. I think you know that because the first time we ever met, I think we met because I yelled, "Hey, that reminds me of my daughter's chemo duck." It was in a conference hall somewhere. And then we launched into a whole conversation about it. So I'm really, really excited to be talking to you today. Because I'm a big fan, I could wax poetic about what you do for a long time, but I'd love to hear in your own words more about what you do at Empath Labs and specifically around the programs of trials.
Yeah, absolutely. So our work at Empath Labs is all about helping young children get emotionally ready for clinical research. So that means really practicing through medical simulation. So we make these interactive companions where you can care for them using the same medical procedures that you'll experience during a trial. And this work is actually built upon a 14-year history as a business creating interactive tools for kids with illness. So we'll spend most of our time, I know, talking about clinical trials, but we do actually make an interactive duck for kids with chemotherapy that's totally free for families, and an interactive teddy bear for kids with type 1 diabetes.
It's actually the first time I came across your work was with Rufus, which is the type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
That idea of therapeutic play is so important. How did this idea strike?
Yeah, so it's something that kids invented. So I'll say I have a personal passion in this space. I grew up with human growth hormone deficiency. So I grew up giving myself a shot every day to grow. So I became really passionate just being in the healthcare system as a kid and not really understanding what was going on. But it wasn't until I was in college that me and a few friends were working on a project about just how do we improve the lives of people with type 1 diabetes. And we interviewed families, and all of the children that we interviewed, they would take a stuffed animal and they would give it diabetes. You know, they would inject it, they would draw little insulin pumps on pieces of paper, and you just, said, right, the power of therapeutic play. This is what kids were already doing. And so we just said, hey, could we make it a little bit more interactive?
How did that morph into clinical trials specifically?
Yeah, a really wavy path, I would say. So, for about 10 years, this is all we did. We had Rufus the bear for type 1. We have My Special Aflac Duck for cancer. We have another product called Purble, which is for young children with anxiety. And this was kind of what we were doing. And a CRO actually reached out to us and wanted to put one of our products into a clinical trial. And I had no idea. I'm like, well, what's that? I knew what a clinical trial was, but why are you doing that? What's the benefit? What are you aiming to achieve? And we ended up really designing clinical companions around what we learned that the industry kind of was asking for.
And you've now worked with thousands at least, tens of thousands of kids. I mean, every child who's diagnosed with T1D gets a bear, so a lot of kids. Is there any particular project that has been the most meaningful for you?
Yeah, so we just did the numbers at the end of last year. It's been 188,000 kids who have gotten our products.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations, that's huge.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there are just so many impactful moments. I mean, I've done about 700 interviews with kids and their parents, and I think honestly, something for me that is a real highlight is the development of our My Special Aflac Duck, just because we were embedded in the Aflac Cancer Center, part of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and we worked with about 100 kids going through chemo, and I got the chance to build really awesome personal relationships with them because we would go back again and again over about an 18-month period, and so we were kind of following, this group of kids through their treatment, and they were giving us feedback on every little bit, from the design of the spaceship. I would, carve little wax spaceships, and we'd take it to the kids, and they'd tell us which one they liked, to what the world looked like, and I just really felt so emotionally connected to their outcomes, so emotionally connected to their families, just everything. So that has been a real, I guess, highlight in this journey.
Absolutely. I remember how quickly our toy rotation changed after Rona's
Yeah.
diagnosis. It was the first hospitalization when she got the chemo doc because we were talking about central lines and how we are going to take care. She was going to get a PICC line first and then a central line. So we were talking about how we were going to take care of it. And then when she needed a feeding tube, we got a doll that had a feeding tube attached to it. And when she lost her hair from chemo, we got the ball Barbies that had the same
Yeah.
color wig to match her own. And those things are so critical for helping kids to process what's happening and have a way to really communicate how they're feeling about things, because so much comes out in those play sessions. You mentioned already that you navigated a diagnosis as a child. You're pretty public about that, so it's okay that I mention it as well.
Yeah, totally.
What would it have meant to you to have one of these?
I think it would have meant a lot. I mean, I didn't tell anybody. Now I'm very public. I talk all the time about being a patient, but I didn't tell a soul until I was 21 years old. The only people that knew were my mom, my dad, and my sister. Even my immediate family, didn't know. And I was so embarrassed. I was shy about it. I didn't, it was just something I just wanted to be under the rug. Like, I just didn't want to talk about it. And I wish I had tools that made me feel a little more empowered, and made me feel more ownership over that this is a part of me and it's okay, and I'm not different, or I am different and it's okay that I'm different,
Yeah. How beautiful to take that and turn it into something that has just so normalized it, and making little friends to go through it with the kids. It's incredible legacy.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's something that just, it's so hard for me to choose like what was an impactful moment with kids, because every time I meet a child or a teenager and I could just, be with them and hear the way, like give them a tool and see how they use it and project onto it and use it to express themselves differently. Yeah, it's speaking to that inner child.
Yeah,
For
to
sure.
go from being the kid in the clinic to helping the kid in the clinic. And what was that transition like?
I think it is ongoing, I guess. It's ongoing. I mean, I love that question, and I kind of pause because it's not something I think anybody has ever asked me. I mean, on a personal level, like the longer I do this work, the more I get in touch with maybe what my needs were at that age. And so that is like on a very, very personal level, like that is a continuous discovery for me. But I think what it's meant is just a sense of purpose. I think in that transition of being the patient to being in service of young patients, it's purpose. It's just, a driving force within me that I know what it was like in my own fraction of my own lived experience, and I just want to give forward. I want kids to have a better way of understanding of coming to terms with their own diagnoses and with being able to own that in a way that helps them cope emotionally and sets them up for long-term success.
I talk to so many people who are in this space, and in so many ways, I think we're all trying to fill a gap that we had. And it's like healing the need that we experienced. And I had a conversation a few days ago with someone who was talking about how when she first got into advocacy, it was, hey, there's this gap, and she expected pushback, and I expect pushback always. And people are like, yes, that is a gap. Correct. And you're like, okay, so what are we doing about it, right? And so like, and so 188,000, I think you said, kids later, quite a gap that you have filled. Really remarkable.
Thank you, Lindsay. I mean, you get it. Like, you had the same experience, personal experience that drove your passion, and that is what I love, meeting people in our industry. Right? You talk to folks, and everybody has an origin story, right? Like their own, bitten by a radioactive spider that's gotten them into the work that they're doing.
Sometimes literally too, like something radioactive.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, chemo. I mean, for sure. So, yeah, and I'm inspired, continuously inspired by you and by everybody else kind of in our sector who's just, there are so many unmet needs for kids and for teens as they're going through treatment. It's endless. So
and
it's
families. I'm going to
and
throw in
families.
and caregivers, like there's,
Caregivers and siblings, which are so often left out, but it's like, it is like the, like the Avengers, like we need like so many companies, so many nonprofits working in this space because there's so much unmet need.
So speaking of, how do you decide what's next? Are you able to tell us what's next?
How do we decide what's next? I think we just really try to listen. I've had the privilege of kind of being brought up in the school of design thinking. And that is, I founded Design for America, actually, which is a nationwide nonprofit that helps students learn about design thinking, but for social impact.
Amazing.
So we were the first project of Design for America, and it was just because we heard about this problem. It was like an online blog, actually, the Diabetes Mind blog, that put out this kind of call for innovation. So how do we think about what's next? For me, it's this process, or for us, it's this process of just continuous listening. And so right now, some of the things that we're hearing are about how do we continuously bridge across older age groups? Like, are there aspects of what we're doing for children and teens that adults might like? We have an intrepid sponsor who is using this in an adult population. We're very excited to learn, to just see, right? So that's one sector. And then the other sector that we're listening and we're learning a lot about is that we're focused now really deeply in clinical research. But the problems we're solving in clinical research, how do we retain patients in a study? How do we help them be adherent? How do we help them psychosocially to understand their own disease, to build their health literacy with their treatment, to communicate to others, to lower the stress in the home around the disease? Like, this is a really, can be a really impactful thing in the commercial space as well. So
Absolutely.
Our vision is to follow these molecules and jump onto the commercial side and say, if we're supporting young patients emotionally on this study, well, what about when they start your treatment now? How do we help welcome them onto a new treatment protocol? How do we help them stay adherent to their treatment? How do we help them communicate to their parents to feel comfort, to build a brand relationship that helps them want to stay, a part of this, and really play across all of the values. So I can I can speak a lot about what it means for kids. Of course, like for kids, it's comfort and joy. For a company, right, you want more than that. And so it's adherence, it's retention, it's continued prescriptions. But that's something that I'm really passionate about, to really expand the reach. Because in a study, we might deal with a 30-person patient population, even though that drug is prescribed to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of kids.
Yeah, and beyond that, just even education. I think there was a study, and I'm going to totally miscite this, so no one quote me, but it's something like 70%, it's more than half of Americans, even when they read a prescription label, administer the medication wrong. And so when you think about the implications of that, and then in a ped setting, and having been the parent doing that literally in the middle of the night mixing drugs, you have a lot of room for error. So having tools like yours can really help on the education piece and making sure that people are getting the medications in the way that they should be receiving them too.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do your marketing for you now. That's what I'm going to do.
Hey, preach. I love it, Lindsay. How do we take it from a little black and white diagram that's got 10 steps in it, that's all grayscale, into yes and. We always need the IFU. And how do we make it interactive? How do we make it engaging? How do we help people learn by doing and decrease the anxiety around all of those steps? I mean, you've got mixed medications, you've probably reconstituted powdered medications, right? All of this stuff that just...
At 2 a.m.
Really hard. I remember for my parents, I was on a powdered reconstitution of a growth hormone drug when I was a kid. And I remember switching from a pre-filled vial that was put into a pen to a drug in which we had a powder, we had a diluent, and we put them together. And I remember how stressful it was for my parents. I remember my mom crying because of how challenging it was to mix this drug and feeling like she might have wasted a dose or that she messed up. Only intensifying, in the situation that you're describing for yourself, the stakes being even higher, No,
but either way, you're a parent, and you're thinking about your kid in those moments. The series is called Magic Wand Moments. The reason for that is I'm going to hand you an imaginary magic wand right now, and I'm going to say, Aaron, here's your magic wand. You can use it to make any wish you want, the only rule is that it has to be for a change in how we deliver pediatric care, and that could be for patients or for caregivers. So here's your magic wand. What's your wish and why?
I'm just taking a moment to think, because this is
good question.
we get a genie lamp here. We have magic wand, sorry, and like this is
Either way,
a big wish.
if you'd rather have a genie lamp, I can.
No. It's
wave
a magic
my
wand
arm.
moment. This is a magic wand moment. So my wish is broad.
Okay.
My wish is that we figure out ways of speaking in the language of the child when we deliver care. And the reason why this is a really broad wish is that I think that it's there are so many things that are so valuable. I was thinking like, well, one wish would be that every child has a child life specialist. Well, what do child life specialists do? They speak in the language of kids.
Yeah.
I'd love every child to have a companion. They speak in the language of play. Piaget, play is the work of childhood, right? Like the language of childhood. That is how children understand. There are so many other things. Fun labs speak in the language of children. Like, I want us to think about the child-centric view on care. And from there, we can bridge out. When we speak in the language of children, we involve siblings. We speak to the lowest common denominator from a health literacy standpoint. We make sure that everybody understands. We can bring everybody along. And we can speak not only from an educational standpoint, because speaking in the language of children also means communicating compassionately. And it means factoring in more than just the translation of information, but it means building trust. It means setting expectations, and it means helping children and their parents and their siblings become emotionally ready for the care. Because it's not just about having all the information. It's about feeling emotionally ready. And so I think that speaking in the language of children is what unlocks this emotional readiness, which I think is a key component that's really missing from care. We prepare you physically, we give you all of the information, but we're not yet making sure that you're emotionally prepared for your treatment.
Aaron, thank you so much for joining me. There's nothing else I can say on that. It was perfect. I love your energy and your work. I said this at the beginning. I'm a big fan. Fan from afar now, fan a little bit closer. And it was just a pleasure to share this space and to get to know you a bit more and your work a bit more. Last question. This one's hopefully easier, though some people do get tripped up by it. Where's the best place for viewers to learn more about your work?
Oh, yeah. Check out our website, empathlabs.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, or follow our business on LinkedIn. We post a lot. That's actually where we have the most moment-to-moment updates on what we're doing. Fun videos, and actually we're just launching a series of videos where we're asking folks what they love about what they do in our industry of clinical research. And so, please follow along.
Will do. Fantastic. Thank you again so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing to follow your work.
Thank you so much for having me, and just to spend time with another kindred spirit is really special.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.